When Vicki first started or talked to me about doing this, she said, and if you're bashful about doing it, she said you could just write it and someone would read it. And out of my mouth immediately came, "Oh, I'm not bashful." So I'm shaking, but I'm not bashful. I'll be dealing with memories of the First Christian Church on South Potomac Street from the 1920s into the 1950s. When telling my family something, they will say, "Mom, just give us the short version, please," knowing that I often give the long version. So Dr. Brooks, I will assure you that this will be the short version and I'll not take from your morning message. My grandmother, Ruy E. West, my father, Norman E. West Sr., and my mother, Evelyn, were members of First Christian Church on South Potomac Street in the late 1920s. My grandmother was a member of the Up the Graph Bible class, and my dad was a member of the men's Bible class. My oldest brother, Reverend Dr. Norman E. West Jr., he was a Timothy of the First Christian Church and served the West Point Church, Christian Church in West Point, Virginia for more than 30 years. And my brother Donald West is now still a member of this congregation and worships here just about every Sunday. I came along in 1935 and was in the cradle roll. I have a photo of that, the nursery, the people that were in that, and there was about 24. Some of the names might be familiar to some of you. Just a few that I'll mention is Joyce Grove, Jane Davies, Audrey Hamburg, Jack Shingleton, and Sylvia Wolfe. And then I have another photo from 1940 when there were 18 children in that one. You may recognize some of the teachers. One of the teachers was Miss Elizabeth Ridenauer, Mrs. Lois Talbot Stein, Catherine Murdoch, Bertha McKenna, Camellia Rohr Gibson. Oh, and I have to tell you a story about Miss Gibson. It won't be a long story. Mrs. Gibson was my Sunday school teacher when I was like in the nursery and maybe in a class 2 or 3 years after that. Hagerstown, she worked for Potomac Edison, and she was transferred to Cumberland. After Wayne was discharged from the Army, he worked for Potomac Edison also, and he was transferred to Cumberland. So Mrs. Gibson and Wayne got together in an employees meeting, and through the conversation that they had, she found out that he was my husband and that she had me in a couple of the Sunday school classes. Well, then she learned that we had 2 small children, and when she knew that, she became their grandmother. She insisted that they come to visit her almost every weekend, so we would. I've always thought that was interesting that one of my Sunday school teachers sort of adopted my 2 children. We wore cap and gowns when we would graduate from one department to another. I have a picture laying out there that you can take a look at. We were always so proud that we wore caps and gowns. The Sunday school area was something that's very vivid to me in that church, and this is how I remember it. In back of the sanctuary was a stage, and it was huge. And so then there was a seating area with wooden chairs and the seats folded up. And then on all the 3 walls was the Sunday school classes, upstairs and downstairs. On Children's Day was an exciting time on that stage. We would do our recitations, and they would use a white picket fence around the edges of it, and there'd be lots of flowers. and all ages would participate in singing and reciting different verses. Let's see here. I also have a Christmas program book from 1939. It's just about dilapidated. But how I got this book was my cousin Rose Hart Brittner was shopping in an antique shop in Hagerstown area. She was interested in a big bowl, and in this big bowl laid this book. And so she picked it up, and she saw that it was from First Christian Church. By the way, the book only cost 20 cents back then. So there's two recitations in here that I want to read to you. One was given by Phil Adams, and this was what he gave as his recitation on that day, and it was right before they took the offering. Oh, Christmas is a cheerful time. It makes us glad we're living. And now you folks will have a chance to do some cheerful giving. And then my recitation then, and this was about 1939, and then my recitation was the greeting. They picked out a very small scholar to give you a greeting of cheer, and so I'm sure I must holler so folks on the back seat can hear. And then I was to yell, "Merry Christmas!" So that is a very, very interesting little book. As a teenager, I attended Christian Endeavor on Sunday nights, and it would be with Audrey Hamburg, Jane Davies, and we were pretty regular at attending those on Sunday evening. I was baptized in 1947 by Dr. Norman, and then along with Jane and Audrey and some others. I have a church bulletin from a candlelight service, and that has the date on it of December 24, 1951. And a candlelight service, let's see, okay. I think I can read it without my glasses. A candlelight service in those days was entirely different from a Christmas Eve candlelight service that we have now. And here is the directions. The minister will light his candle from an altar candle, and the ushers will light their candles from the minister's candle. Then the ushers will light the candle of the first worshiper in each pew, and he in turn will light the candle of his neighbor, who will light the candle of the one next to him, and so on, until all the candles are lighted. It is urgently requested that no lighted candles be tipped. Tip only the unlighted candle when lighting your candle from your neighbor. Keep your candle lighted and take it out and out with you to represent taking of the Christian light into the world. It was a beautiful service, and I always looked forward going to a candlelight service. So this bulletin is from 1951, and I knew Wayne for about 5 months, so I invited him to go to this candlelight service with me. And what did he do? He dozed off. Well, that's another story. When returning from Germany in I've got to back up here. Dr. Norman did our wedding, and our reception was in the fellowship hall of that church. So that's a good memory. When returning from Germany in 1956, we attended First Christian Church, both Sunday school and worship, for 1 year, and then we moved to Cumberland. In 1959, Wayne was taking a small church in Alba, Pennsylvania, until he was finishing some of his undergraduate work and going on to seminary. And at that church, they required that you be immersed. And so he was a little concerned about that because he had only been sprinkled. So Dr. Hogeville, who was the minister then on South Potomac Street, told him, just come on over and this afternoon. It was on a Sunday, he said, and I'll immerse you. So he was immersed in that church. After being away from all of this area for almost 50 years, we came back to this church in 1998 and made this our home church. So one of the songs that I remember, I saved this for last, when I was a little girl at that church, we would form a circle and hold hands. And this is very vivid to me also. And one of the songs that we learned, of course, was Jesus Loves Me, but the song of Friends, Friends, Friends. And so I'm going to sing that for you. I don't want Matt to ask me to join the choir, but I'm going to sing it. Friends, 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 I have some friends I know. I love my friends and they love me. I help my friends and they help me. Friends, 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 I have some friends I know. Thank you.